Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Today's lesson, the title of today's lesson is Yah's Temple, God's House. I say again, today's lesson is entitled Yah's Temple, God's House. We'll start off our lessons like we normally do. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Now, many of you are in these Christian churches day by day. You have 4 and 5 on every block, and some of you have this belief that you are in the house of God and you are gathering in God's house. Nothing could be further from the truth. However, don't take my word for it. What we will do is we will go into the script. We'll go through the scrolls like we normally do, and I will show you where to look. You determine what you will see. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off with this lesson. We will start off at First Chronicles. First Chronicles chapter 22. First Chronicles chapter 22, and we will read verse 1 through 14. This is going to be a lengthy lesson. However, it will give you all the information you need for you to make the corrections and to correct the errors of your ways. So let's get started. Brace yourselves. Don't look to the left or to the right, or you might get hit in the mouth. You have to walk the straight way. Let's begin First Chronicles chapter 22, verse 1. And it reads, Then David said, This is the house of Yah, and this is the altar of the burnt offering for Israel. Altar of the burnt offering for Israel, not for the whole wide world. Verse 2. And David commanded to gather together the strangers that were in the land of Israel. These strangers in the land of Israel are those who are not Israelites. They're in the land, they're dwelling in the midst of the sons of Jacob, or the house of Israel, and they're doing labors and things of the like. Okay? And he set masons to hew wrought stones to build the house of Yah. Verse 3. And David prepared iron in abundance for the nails for the doors of the gates and for the joinings, and brass in abundance without weight. Verse 4. And cedar trees in abundance, for the Zidonians and they of Tyre brought much cedar wood to David. Verse 5. And David said, Solomon my son is young and tender, and the house that is to be builded for Yah must be exceedingly magnificent, of fame and of glory throughout all countries. Now, David is making plain that that house that he's about to build will be exceedingly magnificent. It's going to be a magnificent thing in building, okay? That's going to have fame throughout all countries. He did not say that he's going to build one, let alone thousands throughout all countries. This is just one house, and I want you to understand that. Now, let's continue. I will therefore now make preparation for it. So David prepared abundantly before his death. So he was stockpiling all the raw materials to prepare this house for it to be built. He was stacking away the timbers, the brass, the gold, the silver, the precious stones, etc., all the raw materials. Verse 6. Then he called for Solomon his son and charged him to build an house for the house of Yah, or for the strong one of Israel. Verse 7. And David said to Solomon, My son, as for me, it was in my mind to build an house unto the name of Yah, my strong one. Verse 8. But the word of Yah came to me, saying, Thou hast shed blood abundantly, and hast made great wars. Thou shalt not build an house unto my name, because thou hast shed much blood upon the earth in my sight. So, it was in David's heart and in David's mind to build the house unto the Most High. However, the Most High made plain that David was not to do it because he was a man of war. Okay, David subdued the land. None of David's enemies ever prospered against him. The Most High eliminated them. That includes his own son Absalom. So anyone that went up against David, they were subdued. They were killed. Okay, so David had shed much blood in the sight of the Most High, so therefore he could not build that house to the Most High. However, it was charged that his son Solomon would. Verse 9, behold, a son shall be born to thee, who shall be a man of rest, because during the time of Solomon, Solomon was granted rest. And I will give him rest from all his enemies round about, for his name shall be Solomon. And I will give peace and quietness unto Israel in his days. Verse 10, he shall build an house for my name, and he shall be my son, and I will be his father, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom over Israel forever. That is verse 10. Verse 11, now my son, Yah be with thee, and prosper thou, and build the house of Yah, as he has said of thee. Only Yah give thee wisdom and understanding, and give thee charge concerning Israel, that thou mayest keep the law of Yah thy strong one. So you will see throughout this book all that is being concerned, and the general or the common denominator is always keep the Most High's laws, keep the Most High's laws, keep the Most High's laws. That's it, okay? Especially when you're seeing with the kings, with the priests, the prophets, etc. This is the one theme that's throughout the book. All right, in no time were these laws done away with, or anyone ever died for you, so you don't have to keep them. Okay, so these were the things that David is telling Solomon before he passes. Verse 13. Then shalt thou prosper, if thou takest heed to fulfill the statutes and judgments which Yah charged Moses with concerning Israel. Be strong and of good courage, dread not, nor be dismayed. Verse 14. Now behold, in my trouble I have prepared for the house of Yah 100,000 talents of gold, and 1,000 talents of silver, and of brass, and iron without weight. For it is in abundance, timber also, and stone have I prepared, and thou mayest add thereto. So, David has prepared all the raw materials for this temple. But he's telling Solomon, look, ensure that you follow the laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts of the Most High. In doing so, you shall prosper. Take heed to do this. Okay, so that's the warning that David is giving to his son Solomon. Now, let's jump to chapter 23. So, all the raw materials are ready for this house to be built. Okay, we'll jump to chapter 23. Same First Chronicles chapter 23, and we will read verse 1 through 6. And verse 1 read First Chronicles chapter 23, verse 1. So when David was old and full of days, he made Solomon his son king over Israel. Verse 2. And he gathered together all the princes of Israel with the priests and the Levites. Now the Levites were numbered from the age of 30 years and upward, and they're numbered by their polls, man by man, was 38,000, of which 24,000 were to set forward the work of the house of Yah, and 6,000 were officers and judges. Moreover, 4,000 were porters, and 4,000 praised Yah with the instruments which I have made, saith David, to praise therewith. Verse 6. And David divided them into courses among the sons of Levi, namely Gershom, Kohath, and Merari. Now, so you understand clearly what is happening here. As they get ready to build a house to the Most High, the Levites were given instructions. The Levites were to set forth the work. They know exactly what's to be builded where, what's to be placed where, and they're totally in charge of that. Okay, so they were split up and given different duties in order for that house to be built. Okay, so the musicians, the ones that are playing the trumpets, etc., and singing, this is not just anyone. Most individuals can go to a church, play the piano a couple of times, and get a job. Come on here every Sunday morning and get a little side music gig. If you can sing, you can blow a little bit, you can go to any church and just, okay, you be part of the choir and be the head singer, etc., etc. This is not how the house of the Most High operates. If you are not a Levite, You are not the porter of the door. You're not a keeper of the door. You're not singing anything. You're not playing anything in that place. You have to be of the bloodline of Levi to sing in there, to play any of the instruments. You just can't just waltz up in there because you know how to sing or you can play the piano, be doing anything in the house of Yah. It doesn't work that way. Now, let's jump down to verse 13. Same chapter, chapter 23, First Chronicles. We will read verse 13. The sons of Amram, Aaron and Moses. So Aaron and Moses are the sons of Amram. And Aaron was separated that he should sanctify the most holy things, he and his sons forever, to burn incense before Yah, to minister unto him, and to bless in his name forever. So Aaron specifically and his sons are the only ones that will ever minister directly unto the Most High. These are the Most High's priests. So all of you who are out there saying you're starting your ministry, nothing but a side hustle. Some of you out here, and I call you chumps, and you are exactly that, because you're not Levites. You cannot prove your genealogy being the sons of Aaron. You do not wear the priestly garments at all. Don't even know where they are. So this priesthood in this temple is specifically of the bloodline of Levi and specifically of the sons of Aaron. This is forever. This does not change. There's no such thing as you going to a seminary school and becoming a priest to the Most High. It is impossible. Now, let's jump down to same chapter. We're going to go First Chronicles chapter 23. Let's jump down to verse 24. Verse 24 speaks to the duties of the Levites. All right. We'll read verse 24, verse 28 through 32. So verse 24 of First Chronicles chapter 23 reads, These were the sons of Levi after the house of their fathers, even the chief of their fathers, as they were counted by number of names by their polls, that did the work for service, that did the work for the service of the house of Yah from the age of 20 years and upward. So we're seeing where all the work and the service is being done by these Levites, because the Levites are solely the Most High's. All right, they were not giving any possession. They will control and do everything pertaining to sacrifices, and everything pertaining to this temple is strictly done by Levites, a bloodline of men whom the Most High made a covenant with forever, that they will always be before him and they will always minister unto him. To minister simply means to be in service to. So that will be plain. Okay, so they will minister unto the Most High, meaning that they will be in direct service to him. Now let's jump down to verse 28, same chapter. Both for the shewbread and for the fine flour, for meat offerings, and for the unleavened cakes, and for that which is baked in the pan, and for that which is fried, and for all manner of measure and size. Verse 30, and to stand every morning to thank and praise Yah, and likewise at evening. So there to be sacrifices in the morning, sacrifices in the evening. And the only people that are doing these are these Levites. Verse 31, and to offer all burnt sacrifices unto Yah in the Sabbaths, in the new moons, and on the set feasts by number, according to the order commanded unto them, continually before Yah. So they have orders, and those orders are simply the laws of Moses. And they are to offer sacrifices continually before the Most High. Okay? Now, verse 32. And they should keep the charge of the tabernacle of the congregation, and the charge of the holy place, and the charge of the sons of Aaron, their brethren, in the service of the house of Yah. Excuse me. So, the purpose of the Levites is to keep the charge of the house of the Most High. You can't get hired to do this. You understand? So this is a bloodline of men that does this and will always do this forever. All right. Now, let's go to First Chronicles. We're going to go to chapter 28. Still in First Chronicles. So we're establishing when this temple is built and what actually takes place there. First Chronicles chapter 28. We will read verse 3 and verse 4. Verse 3 of First Chronicles chapter 28 reads, But Yah said unto me, Thou shalt not build an house for my name, because thou hast been a man of war and hast shed blood. So this is the Most High once again reiterating to David that you're not going to build this house because you are a man of war and you have shed much blood in my sight. Verse 4, Howbeit, the Lord, or Yah, the strong one of Israel, chose me before all the house of my father to be king over Israel forever. For he hath chosen Judah to be the ruler, and of the house of Judah, the house of my father, and among the sons of my father, he likened me to make me king over all Israel. So we'll understand clearly as David is giving his son Solomon instructions that the Most High chose Judah to be the ruler. Judah is the lawgiver. So all the governors, who you call kings, who can also be referred to as captains of the people, the leaders, these kings, governors, these captains will be of the house of Judah, because Judah is the ruler and Judah is the lawgiver. Okay, so all of the kings will come out of the tribe of Yehudah. Specifically, they will come out of the seed of David. Okay, so just like all the keepers of the Most High's temple are Levites, but his priests are of a specific line of Levi, that will be the house or the sons of Aaron. Okay, so the same thing, the rulers are the tribe of Judah, but the captains of the people, or what you would call the kings or the governors, they are specifically going to come out of the sons of David. Okay, to make that clear that Judah is indeed the ruler and Judah is the lawgiver. All right. First Chronicles, still in 28. We're going to jump down to verse 9. We're going to read 9 through 13. All right, First Chronicles chapter 28, verse 9 reads, And thou, Solomon my son, know thou the Yah of thy fathers, know thou the God of thy fathers, or the strong one of thy father, and serve him with a perfect heart and with a willing mind. For Yah searches all hearts, and understandeth all the imaginations of the thoughts. If thou seek him, he will be found of thee. But if thou forsake him, he will cast thee off forever. So once again, David is warning Solomon to make sure that he seek the Most High with a perfect heart. Should he not do so, that the Most High will cast him off forever. Verse 10, Take heed now, for Yah hath chosen thee to build an house for the sanctuary. Be strong and do it. Then David gave to Solomon his son the pattern of the porch, and of the houses thereof, and of the treasuries thereof, and of the upper chambers thereof, and of the inner parlors thereof, and of the place of the mercy seat. Verse 13, And the pattern of all that he had by the Spirit, of the course of the house of Yah, and of all the chambers round about, of the treasuries of the house of Yah, and of the treasuries of the dedicated things. Verse 13, Also for the courses of the priest and the Levites, and for all the work of the service of the house of Yah, and for all the vessels of service in the house of Yah. So all the things, the dedicated things, was presented to Solomon, so Solomon knew exactly what needed to be placed where and exactly what the Levites' duties were within that house. Okay? Now, we're staying in the same chapter. Let's go down to verse 19. Verse 19 of 1 Chronicles chapter 28 reads, And this, said David, Yah made me understand in writing by his hand upon me, even all the works of this pattern. So David is making clear that the house in which Solomon was to build, that the Most High had placed his spirit upon David and pretty much gave him the blueprint of how this house is supposed to be laid out, how it's supposed to be built. Okay? Now let's move over one chapter to chapter 29, and we will read verse 2. First Chronicles chapter 29, verse 2. And it reads, Now I have builded all my might. No, excuse me. Now I have prepared all my might for the house of my God, or for the house of Yah, the gold for things to be made of gold, and the silver for things of silver, and the brass for things of brass, the iron for things of iron, and the wood for things of wood, onyx stones, stones to be set, glistering stones, and of divers colors, in all manner of precious stones and marble stones in abundance. So David is telling him that, look, I've prepared everything. I have all these stones, the timber, the gold, the brass, the silver, etc. I have all of these things prepared for this house. Okay, so verse 29, let's stay in chapter 29, and we're going to go down to verse 18 and 19. Chapter 29, verse 18 and verse 19. So First Chronicles chapter 29, verse 18 and 19 reads, O Yah, strong one of Abraham, Isaac, and of Israel, who is Jacob, our fathers, keep this forever in the imagination of the thoughts of the hearts of thy people, and prepare their hearts unto thee, and give unto Solomon my son a perfect heart, to keep thy commandments, thy testimonies, and thy statutes, and to do all these things, and to build a place for the which I have made provisions. So David is making a prayer, asking that Solomon would keep a perfect heart, that he would do the things that are right in the Most High's sight. Okay? And that Solomon would keep the commandments of Yah, would keep his testimonies, and will keep his statutes. So you're going to see this continually throughout the kings of Judah. Okay? That we continue to try to go back to these laws, because we must go back to these laws. They are not done away with. So David was making a petition for his son Solomon, asking the Most High to make sure that he gives him a good heart, that he will do the things that are right in the sight of the Most High. Okay. Now let's jump to Second Chronicles. We will go chapter 3. Second Chronicles chapter 3. Second Chronicles chapter 3, and we will read verse 1 through 3. This is where the temple begins to be built. All right. So Second Chronicles chapter 3, verse 1. Then Solomon began to build the house of Yah at Jerusalem in Mount Moriah. Okay. So you know exactly where the house of the Most High was built. It was built at Jerusalem at Mount Moriah. It was not built throughout the whole earth. One house, one temple, one city, and that's the only place that the Most High chose to rest his name. Let's restart and redo that. Second Chronicles chapter 3, verse 1. Then Solomon began to build the house of Yah at Jerusalem in Mount Moriah, where Yah appeared unto David his father, in the place that David had prepared in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. Okay, so we have this clear exactly where we know now where this house was to be built. All right, now we'll go to Second Chronicles, and we'll go to chapter 5. Move over 2 chapters. Second Chronicles chapter 5. We'll read verse 1 through 5. Okay, this is where the Most High, where the ark is brought up to the temple. Second Chronicles chapter 5. We will read verse 1 through 5. Verse 1 reads, Thus all the work that Solomon made for the house of Yah was finished. And Solomon brought in all the things that David his father had dedicated, and the silver, and the gold, and all the instruments, put he among the treasures in the house of Yah. Verse 2, Then Solomon assembled the elders of Israel, and all the heads of the tribes, the chief of their fathers, of the children of Israel, unto Jerusalem, to bring up the ark of the covenant of Yah out of the city of David, which is Zion. Verse 3, Wherefore all of the men of Israel assembled themselves unto the king in the feast which was in the 7th month. Verse 4. And all the elders of Israel came, and the Levites took up the ark. So what you're seeing here is the Levites taking up the ark. No one can touch that ark or can touch any of the holy things unless you are Levites. So let all of this be plain to you, that you cannot just reach up and just grab the holy things of the Most High. You can't enter into the holy place, etc. These are done specifically by the Levites. Verse 5. And they brought up the ark and the tabernacle of the congregation and all the holy vessels that were in the tabernacle. These did the priest and the Levites bring up. They were the only one that's allowed to bring it up. Because if a Gadite touched this, a Judite, okay, or anyone else of the house of Israel other than the sons of Levi, it would be a great breach. And to make such a breach will get you killed. Okay? Now, still in 2 Chronicles, verse 5, let's read chapter 7 of 2 Chronicles, verse 5. Verse 7 reads, And the priest brought in the ark of the covenant of Yah unto its place, to the oracle of the house, unto the most holy place, even under the wings of the cherubims. So there was a specific place where the ark sat, and that is under the wings of the cherubs. Okay, so nothing is out of place, everything is in order, and the only one allowed to touch the holy vessels are the Levites, and the Levites only. All right, let's jump down, same chapter, verse 10. Verse 10 of 2 Chronicles chapter 5. There was nothing in the ark save the 2 tables which Moses put therein at Horeb, when Yah made a covenant with the children of Israel when they came out of Egypt. So, the 2 tables of stone, the 2 tables of testimony was placed within the ark when the Most High made a covenant with the children of Israel. He did not make this covenant with the whole world. Okay? And what resided within the ark was the table of testimony. That's why it's called the ark of the testimony, or the ark of the covenant, because that covenant, that agreement, those 2 tables of stone were housed within the ark. Okay? Now, let's jump down. We will read same chapter, 2 Chronicles chapter 5. We will read verse 11 through 14. Verse 11 of 2 Chronicles chapter 5 reads, And it came to pass, when the priests were come out of the holy place, for all the priests that were present were sanctified, and did not wait by their courses. Priests sanctified, holy oils upon them, i.e. they are anointed. Okay, so when you hear these Christians talk, you hear Creflo Dollar and his nonsense about, oh, they're anointed of the Most High, God's anointed this and God's anointed that. If you're a king or a governor or a captain, you are anointed. If you were a priest, you are anointed. Okay, and there were many priests in the house of Israel. Okay, so the Most High don't have no such thing as one anointed. It doesn't exist. Okay. Now, there are many men that were anointed. Remember that. Verse 12. Also the Levites, which were the singers, all of them of Asaph. So if you were in there singing in this temple, you are the people of Asaph. Asaph's line. That's who the singers are. You just don't bust up in there and sing because he could blow, so he's part of the choir. He's part of the church choir. It does not work that way. Okay, you have Levites here who are singing, and Levites here who play the instruments, and Levites here who are keepers of the door. Anyone can't do this at this house. So you understand that, all right? Let's read verse 12 once again. All the Levites which were singers, all of them Asaph of Heman and Jeduthun, and with their sons and their brethren, being arrayed in white linen, having cymbals and psalteries and harps, stood at the east end of the altar, and with them 120 priests, sounding with trumpets. The priests are the ones blowing the trumpets. Some regular chump can't do this. So the priests are the ones blowing the trumpets. Our singers and musicians excuse me, are of Asaph. So you understand that. You have to be a Levite. And so you're not going to die, go to heaven and be a keeper at the door. Number one, you're not going to heaven any place. That also is a lie. This temple is built on the earth. So you understand that. And the Most High will dwell in the earth, on the earth with his people in that third temple when that third one is built. So this whole dying and go to heaven and be a keeper at the door and all this other garbage that you're hearing, it's untrue. All right. Now, I wanted to read through verse 14. So we're reading verse 13. 2 Chronicles chapter 5, verse 13. And it came even to pass, as the trumpeters and singers were as one, to make one sound to be heard in praising and thanking Yah. And when they lifted up their voice with the trumpets and the cymbals and the instrument of music, and praised Yah, saying, For he is good, for his mercy endureth forever. That then the house was filled with a cloud, even the house of Yah. So that's when the Most High made his presence known in this temple while it's being dedicated to him. Verse 14. So that the priests could not stand to minister by reason of the cloud, for the glory of Yah had filled the house of Yah. So here you are, the house of Israel. We are dedicating this house to the Most High. And as the Levites are singing, playing the cymbals, and blowing the trumpets, etc., the Most High made his presence known with a thick cloud. So much so, the Levites, the priests, had to run up out of there. All right? Because it was so thick, smoke was so, they had to go. All right? They had to leave there temporarily because the Most High made his presence felt, that he was pleased with the place and with the dedication of the place. All right? And that was done by Levites in his house. Anyone can't do that. All right? So, let's jump to 2 Chronicles. 2 Chronicles, we will go to chapter 6. One chapter over. 2 Chronicles chapter 6, we'll read verse 5 and 6. All right, and Solomon gets to repeat exactly what his father David said to him. Okay? Based on what Yah had told David, what the Most High had told David. So once again, 2 Chronicles chapter 6, we'll read verse 5 and verse 6. All right, verse 5 of 2 Chronicles chapter 6 read, Since the day that I brought forth my people out of the land of Egypt, I chose no city among all the tribes of Israel to build an house in, that my name might be there. Neither chose I any man to be a ruler over my people. So the Most High is saying, I didn't choose any city out of all the cities of Israel when I brought them out of Egypt, and I never chose any man to be a ruler over them. Verse 6, But I have chosen Jerusalem, that my name might be there, and have chosen David to be over my people Israel. So the Most High chose the city of Jerusalem to be the city that he would choose out of all of Israel, all the cities in Israel, and he chose David out of the tribe of Yehudah, or out of the tribe of Judah, to be the captain over his people. Okay? To be the captain, to be the governor, to be the king. Take your pick. Either one of those titles is fine. Okay? So, David will be the ruler, him and his sons forever, because the Most High made a covenant with David that one of his men will always be, one of his seed, one of his sons will always be before him. This is a covenant the Most High made with David. Okay, so David will always have a man of his seed upon the throne of Israel, provided the house of Israel is gathered, that temple is built, and we are a nation dwelling in the land of Israel. Okay. 2 Chronicles, we'll stay in the same chapter. 2 Chronicles chapter 6, we will read verse 11. Jump down to verse 11. And verse 11 of 2 Chronicles chapter 6 reads, And in it have I put the ark wherein is the covenant of Yah that he made with the children of Israel. So we read this previously, where within the ark houses the two tables of stone, the two tables of testimony. And this is the covenant that the Most High made with Israel. Yep, I said that loud. Not the whole wide world. It was made with the house of Israel, the sons of Jacob. That's it. All right, so anyone telling you God made some covenant with everyone, this is not so. Okay, the Most High made this covenant with the house of Israel and Israel alone. Now, let's jump down to 2 Chronicles. We're going to go to chapter 6, and we'll read verse 12. Okay, we'll read verse 12, where Solomon made his supplication. So verse 12 of 2 Chronicles chapter 6 reads, this is Solomon doing this. And he stood before the altar of Yah in the presence of all the congregation of Israel and spread forth his hands. All right. He comes before, he spread forth his hands, and his head is down in prayer. So Solomon, upon the altar being up and the temple being builded, he stood before all Israel, okay, and he got down on his knees, raised his hands, okay, and made a supplication on the behalf of all Israel, far and near, and the behalf of strangers, those who are not of the house of Israel. Okay, and this is where we clearly understand this is how we must pray. We should not pray with our hands clasped, doing the sign of the cross, or anything crazy like that. Okay, because we're seeing here exactly how Solomon made his supplication to the Most High when this first temple was built. So Solomon has spread forth his hands, and he made his supplication unto the Most High on the behalf of the children of Israel and on the behalf of the stranger. All right. Now, let's go to 2 Chronicles chapter 7. 2 Chronicles chapter 7, and we will read verse 1 and 2. 2 Chronicles chapter 7, and we will read verse 1 and 2. Verse 1 reads of 2 Chronicles chapter 7. Now when Solomon had made an end of praying, the fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offering and the sacrifices, and the glory of Yah filled the house. Verse 2. And the priest could not enter into the house of Yah because the glory of Yah had filled Yah's house. So after Solomon had finished praying, had finished raising his hands in supplication to the Most High, whatever they had, the burnt offering, whatever meat they had upon the altar at that time, fire came down from heaven and burnt it up. Okay, and then the Most High pretty much filled his house with that smoke, that holy smoke. Okay, so that's how Israel knew that the Most High was with them. He was pleased with the dedication of that house, and he made his presence known in that house. Okay? All right. 2 Chronicles chapter 7. Same chapter. We will go to verse 6. This is to make clear to you once again, not because you have a little singing voice, because you can play the guitar, because you've got a little piano skills, that means you can go play in the Most High's temple. Nowadays, in the many lands where we are scattered, and we are walking after these idols, you can go in any church. Most guys, I know one of them, he's got a church gig at this church. He goes plays the piano here, go play the piano there at the next church. You could have 2 or 3 gigs, depending on how spread out this hustle is by these pastors who are not Levites, going into these churches that are not the houses of the Most High. So this is a hustle. So let's reiterate where the only person playing these instruments in the Most High's house are Levites. 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 6. And it reads, And the priests waited on their offices, and the Levites also with instruments of music of Yah, which David the king had made to praise Yah, because his mercy endureth forever, when David praised by their ministry. And the priests sounded trumpets before them, and all Israel stood. Verse 7. Moreover, Solomon hollowed the middle of the court that was before the house of Yah, For there he offered burnt offerings and the fat of the peace offerings, because the brazen altar which Solomon had made was not able to receive the burnt offerings and the meat offerings and the fat offerings. So he had so much to dedicate that the altar could not take it all. All right. So we see here once again, those who have the instruments of music are of the Levites. This is not just anyone that has some musical talents to just come up here and just do this and get some side money. Okay, this is not a hustle. Okay, now let's jump down to same chapter. We will jump down to verse 12. We will read 12 through 22, where the Most High appears unto Solomon once this house was built and this dedication is done. All right, 2 Chronicles, chapter 7, verse 12. And it reads, And Yah appeared to Solomon by night, and said unto him, I have heard thy prayer, and have chosen this place to myself for an house of sacrifice. If I shut up heaven, that there be no rain, or if I command the locusts to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among my people, if my people which are called by my name, there's a reason why the name of Israel was removed. We're called all kind of strange names because our name referred us back to Yah. So let me read verse 14. If my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. So the Most High is saying all his people have to do is, number one, they got to humble ourselves. We've got to humble ourselves and recognize who the Most High is, number one. Then we've got to pray and seek his face. He never said seek someone's named JC's face. He never said someone died for us. He said simply, if we will humble ourselves and seek his face and turn from our wicked ways, idolatry, serving gods he never gave us, going into churches and temples that he never dedicated, and he never put his name there, and his Levites are not in there. All right? And turn from our wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven. So you've got to do all these things for him to hear you, and will forgive their sins, and will heal their land. So he will heal our land, and whatever sickness we may have or problems that may be befalling us, if we will do these things. He never said, hey, look, I'm going to send somebody to die for you. You ain't got to worry about none of that. You can't find that in here out of the mouth of any prophet. Okay, verse 15. Now my eyes shall be open and my ears attent unto the prayer that is made in this place. Verse 16. For now have I chosen and sanctified this house. Most High did not sanctify or chose the Baptist church you go to, the Anglican church, the Seventh-day Adventist church, the Mormon church, or any other church on the face of this earth, whether it be a church, a mosque, or synagogue, or whatever you may call it. It is not the house of the Most High. Most High only did that one house, one spot. He does not have a million houses throughout the earth. He does not have a house 5 minutes from your house. Let's reread verse 16 again. For now have I chosen and sanctified this house, that my name may be there forever. And my eyes and my heart shall be there perpetually. That's forever. So he said, I have chosen this house. He didn't say I have chosen these houses. That's throughout the earth. I know from my house I probably have 15 churches, if not 50 churches, within a 5-mile radius of my house. And I know you do too. These are houses unto idols. Verse 7. And as for thee, if thou wilt walk before me, as David thy father walked, and do according to all that I have commanded thee, and shall observe my statutes and my judgments. That's all the Most High is concerned about. Will you walk after the laws that he has given you? And those are the same ones that he gave to Moses. Okay, so this is not about someone dying for you. It never happened. You want to be forgiven of your sin, you've got to turn to the Most High and humble yourself. And that is all that's required. Baptism ain't required, and you don't have to give them 10% of your money every month. You're being hustled. You are to turn and face that house that was built and make your supplication and humble yourself. That is all the requirements right here. And walk in the confines of this law. It is very simple, but you don't have the discipline to do it. All right. Now, verse 18. Then will I establish the throne of thy kingdom, according as I have covenanted with David thy father, saying, there shall not fail thee a man to be ruler in Israel. So the Most High is telling Solomon, because the Most High talking to him directly. He's appearing unto Solomon. He said, look, you need to walk after my laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. He said, if you do this, I'm going to do all the things that I promised unto David your father, because I made a covenant with him. I told your father that a man of his seed will always be before me on this throne. So if you do the things that are right before me as your father David did, then I will follow through with the covenant that I made with your father David. And everything is going to be all right because I made a covenant with your father David. I told your father David that one of his sons will always be before me. And I will ensure that that covenant is not broken, provided that his sons will walk in the law in which I had given him. It's really that simple. All right. Now, verse 19. Here comes the warning. But if ye turn away and forsake my statutes and my commandments, which I have set before you, and shall go and serve idols, JC, and whomever else, and worship them, verse 20, then will I pluck them up by the roots out of my land, which I have given them. And this house, not these houses, this house, singular, which I have sanctified for my name, will I cast out of my sight, and will make it to be a proverb and a byword among all nations. So the Most High made plain to Solomon, look, I'm going to do all these things for you if you walk within the confines of my law, as your father David has. However, if you make the mistake of going contrary towards my law, I'm going to pluck you up by the roots. I'm going to root you out and I'm going to ship you out, just like he did to the house of Israel. Okay? He got us out of the land because, if you can't obey the house rules, you can't stay in the house. So therefore, in order for us to be on the Most High's land, we have to obey his rules. If we're going to be in his house and have a charge of his house, we have to do the things that are right in his sight. Failure to do that would have us uprooted and casted out. And the house of Israel, starting off with its governors, who is also known as their kings, okay, or also known as the captain, starting with Solomon, they did this thing. And that has caused us to be scattered among these nations where we don't know who we are, where we are, what our name is, speaking all kind of crazy languages, and getting killed every day. All right? Because of this. Okay, so the minute we start to return back to this, we're going to see the Most High shake the earth. All right, so we've got to get back to these laws. All right, verse 21. All right, because we're going to verse 22 with this. And this house, which is high, shall be an astonishment to everyone that passes by it, so that he shall say, why hath Yah done thus unto this land and unto this house? Verse 22. And it shall be answered, because they forsook Yah, the strong one of their fathers, which brought them forth out of the land of Egypt, and laid hold on other gods, and worshipped them, and served them. Therefore hath he brought all this evil upon them. So it's going to be asked, well, why is the land of Israel and the house of Israel, why is all these bad things befalling these people? And the answer is going to be, so I'm going to answer this for you. If you look like me and you're in the nations, whether you be in Europe, Central, South, or Latin America, or North America, wherever you are on this earth, if you look like me, and you ever wonder to yourself, why am I mistreated? Why am I treated unfairly? Why do I see these harsh judgments upon our sons and our daughters each and every day? Why am I hated among the nations? The answer is simple. Because we are the people, we are the house of Israel, who have walked contrary to the Most High's law, and thus we have become a proverb and a byword, and we have become vagabonds in the nations. We are wanderers in the nations. No name, no language, no heritage, because the Most High discontinued his heritage, which is the house of Israel. And the only way for you to get justice and to have this evil that the Most High pronounced against the house of Israel removed is to return back onto these laws. So this kills your Satan nonsense. The Most High put evil upon the house of Israel. You don't see nowhere where it says Satan put evil on Israel. There is no Satan. It's a figment of your imagination. The Most High controls good and evil. When anything happens to you, whether it be good or bad, it is the Most High. If it's good, it's His blessings. If it's bad, it's His judgment. You're screwing up somewhere, somehow. So when you see individuals getting killed and murdered each and every day, the children of Israel, whether it be the 100-year-old man or the 2-month-old child, the Most High said He would have no mercy upon our old or our young. And that's why you see us being killed on a daily basis and mistreated, because we're walking contrary to this law. We are serving idols, gods that the Most High had never given unto us. We are worshiping them in all these many nations, and this is the trouble. This is the cause of your plight. So you understand that. So take that to heart. You must consider why there's fire around about you. There's trouble in your house. There's trouble when you get outside your house. Fire around about. Okay, so the reason for this is because of our transgression, and you need to take this to heart. All right, let's go to 2 Chronicles. We're going to go to chapter 13. Chapter 13, and we will read verse 5. The covenant between David and his sons, because we speak of it, but we want to kind of reiterate a few things. Once again, we're in 2 Chronicles chapter 13, and we'll read verse 5. Verse 5 reads, "Ought ye not to know that Yah, the strong one of Israel, gave the kingdom over Israel to David forever, even to him and his sons by a covenant of salt." So this is so in this is letting Jeroboam know, hey, look, or is letting the house of Israel, the house of Judah, is letting the house of Israel know, look, the kingdom, the rulership of the entire nation of Israel was given unto us, Judah, unto the sons of David forever by a covenant of salt. So he's letting the king that's in Israel in the north, he's letting the king in the north know that, hey, look, you're really not the king. The establishment, the covenant is with us, is with the house of David. It is with Judah. Do not come up against us. And the king of Israel, who is the northern part of Israel, he wouldn't listen, so he got killed for this. Okay, so this is an establishment right here, so everyone knows clearly that the house of David, there was a covenant made between David and the Most High, that the kingdom or the nation of Israel will always have a son of David upon that throne forever. Okay, so that is a covenant that cannot be changed. No one else can sit in that seat of rulership. Now let's go to 2 Chronicles. We're in 13. Let's go to verse 9 and verse 10. Verse 9 and verse 10. And this speaks to the importance of the Levites. Okay, 2 Chronicles chapter 13, verse 9 and verse 10. We will see where the Most High's priest was removed. Okay, but they weren't removed by the Most High. They were removed by Jeroboam. Okay, so verse 9 of 2 Chronicles chapter 13 reads, "Have ye not cast out the priest of Yah, the sons of Aaron?" So this is letting you know that the priest of Yah is the sons of Aaron, no one else. "And the Levites, and have made you priests after the manner of the nations, or after the manner of the nations of other lands, so that whosoever cometh to consecrate himself with a young bullock and 7 rams, that same may be a priest of them that are no gods. All right. So what's being said here? Jeroboam is in the north. All right. He is up there, and he has pretty much decided that, what? I'm going to go ahead and make these 2 calves. That way, the house of Israel, those that are in the north, don't go back to the south, because that's where the temple is. That's where the house is. Okay. So what he did, he took all the priests that were in the coast of Israel, and he literally kicked them out. So all of the sons of Levi went back down into the south. Okay. Because Jeroboam, what he had done, he had kicked them out, and he took anyone that had these few animals right here, 7 rams and a bullock. He took any of them and said, you know what? You're not a priest. So, and he was doing this with people of other lands and whomever he felt fit. Okay. So what you have in the north, you no longer had the Levites up there. So what you have is lawlessness, because Jeroboam had cast them out. Okay. So they all left and went down to the south. Okay. So this is to make clear that the priests of the Most High are indeed the Levites and none other. Verse 10. But as for us, Yah is our strong one, and we have not forsaken him. And the priests which minister unto Yah are the sons of Aaron, and the Levites wait upon their business. So it is made plain here that what he's saying down in the south is, look, the Most High's priests are the Levites, and that's who we're dealing with down here. Jeroboam is up north. He has made his own priest. He set his own set of rules. And the rules that he had the house of Israel, or the house of Israel in the north, he had them follow rules that were not the laws of Moses. And that's why when you read of all the kings or governors or captains of the people that were in the northern kingdom, Samaria, Ephraim, Israel, northern kingdom, when you read of their kings, all you will read is, he did evil in the sight of Yah. He did evil in the sight of Yah. He did evil in the sight. You're going to read that with all of them. Okay, because there were no Levites among them. All right, and they were walking contrary to the Most High's laws and the imaginations of their own hearts. They had eminent high places everywhere, worshiping calves and everything else. Okay, so once again, for us to know clearly that Levites are the ones in this temple, it is not anyone. And this temple was one. First one built by Solomon. All right. So now we'll go to temple 2. So we know the first temple was built by Solomon. David wanted to build it. He could not. Too much blood on his hands. So Solomon built that temple. Solomon dedicated that temple. The Most High accepted his dedication and the dedication of the house of Israel. He burnt up those offerings. He came into that temple. He said he had sanctified that temple, made the city of Jerusalem and that house. He chose to place his name there. He never said he placed his name in your city, and he never said he placed his name in that church you go to. Never happened. Ain't ever going to happen. All right. So now let's go ahead and deal with temple 2, Zerubbabel. All right. So the first temple was built, destroyed by the Babylonians, Nebuchadnezzar and the rest of them. All right. So now let's deal with temple 2. Temple 2 deals with a man called Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel is the man that built that second temple. All right. So let's jump to Ezra. Let's jump to Ezra chapter 1. Ezra chapter 1, we'll read verse 2 through 5. The book of Ezra chapter 1, and we will read verse 2 through verse 5. Verse 2 of Ezra chapter 1 reads, Thus saith Cyrus, king of Persia, Yah, the strong one of heaven, hath given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he hath charged me to build him an house at Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Verse 3, Who is there among you of all his people? His strong one be with him, and let him go up to Jerusalem, which is in Judah, and build the house of Yah to the strong one of Israel in Jerusalem. Verse 4, And whosoever remaineth in any place where he sojourneth, let the men of his place help him with silver, and with gold, and with goods, and with beasts, besides the free offering for the house of Yah, that is in Jerusalem. Verse 5, Then rose up all the chief of the fathers of Judah, and Benjamin, and the priests and the Levites, with all them whose spirit Yah had raised to go up to build the house of Yah, which is in Jerusalem. So we see here where Cyrus, the Most High, had put his spirit upon Cyrus, to where Cyrus actually let us go. Let us go so we can go back and build the temple of the Most High. All right? And this whole thing was led by Zerubbabel. All right? So this is Cyrus asking all those of the house of Israel whose heart was with the Most High, that let that man go up so he can assist in the building of the temple. And you notice, you can't go up there and build that temple unless you've got Levites among you. Okay, there has to be Levites there. You just can't just go up there and slap that building together. Doesn't work that way. Okay, so you have to have Levites in that building. Now, one second. All right. Now we're still going to stay in Ezra chapter 1. We're going to read verse 8. Sheshbazzar. Sheshbazzar is Zerubbabel. All right. Sheshbazzar is his captive name. All right. So, he has his name, his Israelite name is Zerubbabel. Okay. And then his name is Sheshbazzar. That's his captive name, if you will. We will go to Ezra chapter 1, and we will read verse 8. All right. Verse 8 of Ezra chapter 1 reads, Even those did Cyrus, king of Persia, bring forth by the hand of Mithridates, the treasurer, and numbered them unto Sheshbazzar, the prince of Judah. The prince, of Judah, Sheshbazzar, Zerubbabel, same man. All right. Let's jump down to Ezra, same chapter, where we're going to go to verse 11. Ezra chapter 1, verse 11. All the vessels of gold and of silver were 5,400. All these did Sheshbazzar, Zerubbabel, bring up with them of the captivity that were brought up from Babylon unto Jerusalem. So what has happened is, remember, the Babylonian kingdom was run by Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, so Nebuchadnezzar had came in, him and the Babylonians, and literally tore Jerusalem up and burnt that temple, the first temple down that Solomon had built that we just discussed. Okay, so we're still in captivity this time. All right, but then came the Persians. Okay, so the Persians came and crushed the Babylonians. So now the Persians are in charge. All right, so we're still in captivity. But the Most High touched the heart of this Persian king, Cyrus, that allowed Cyrus to release us so we can go up and build this temple at Jerusalem. All right, and this man, Sheshbazzar, whose name is Zerubbabel, he was in charge of that work party to go up and build this house unto the Most High. Okay, so we're dealing now with Temple 2. All right, now we're going to go down to Ezra chapter 2. We're going to deal with verse 1. Ezra chapter 2, verse 1. Now these are the children of the province that went up out of captivity, of those which had been carried away captive from Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried them away unto Babylon, and came again unto Jerusalem and Judah, every one unto his city. So these men that's being returned, they were taken into captivity by Nebuchadnezzar when the Babylonians came through and literally just beat up and slaughtered the house of Israel. And the only reason why Nebuchadnezzar was empowered to do this is because the Most High allowed him to do it, because the house of Israel began to walk contrary to all of his laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. So for that, the Most High used Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians, because he did tell Solomon, look, you walk contrary to my law, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to uproot you, I'm going to pluck you up by the roots, I'm going to cast you off. Okay, so the house of Israel did not do what was right in the sight of the Most High, and this was led by the kings, the captains, the governors, and the priests. Okay, so our leaders, we had failed leadership. The kings fell, the house of David, the priests fell, the Levites. And once that happened, the Most High did what he had promised. He uprooted by the roots, plucked us up by the roots, shipped us out of the land. So Nebuchadnezzar came through, they burnt down the house of the Most High and burnt down the house of every man that was important. Okay, the only people that were left were the poor. All right, so everyone is shipped out of the land. All right, and this was done by Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians. And then they were also conquered by the Persians. All right. So now so you read exactly where this took place. All right, now verse 2 reads, which came with Zerubbabel. Okay, so you know good and well that Zerubbabel is the one that led this party, and it lists all the men that came with him. Okay, the men of Israel. So verse 2 reads, which came with Zerubbabel, Joshua, Nehemiah, Sariah, Realiah, Mordecai, Bilshan, Mispah, Bigvai, Rehum, Baanah, the number of the men of the people of Israel. So it's listing the men that came with Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel, who is Sheshbazzar. Okay? All right. So these are the captives returning from Babylon. They were taken to Babylon by Nebuchadnezzar, and Cyrus released us so we can go back and build this temple. All right. Now let's go to, we're still in second or Ezra chapter 2. Let's go to verse 59. Now, verse 59 of Ezra chapter 2. Okay. This speaks to those of the house of Israel who wanted to make claim that they were Israel. So when anyone ever tell you Israel is everybody, or we're all Israel, and we're all spiritual Israel, and this kind of nonsense. Look, you cannot spiritually be anything. Black man cannot be a spiritual Chinese man, if that makes sense to you. I'm using the terms, you know, black man, white man, Chinese man. This is how we know how to. So we're not going to play semantics here. Okay, so a man that's O positive can't convert and be a man O negative. It doesn't work that way. Okay, so there's a reason why there's genealogy and chronology in this book, because the house of Israel is exactly that. The house of Israel. It is a family. It is a bloodline. Everyone is not Israel. Anyone could never be Israel. Israel is Israel by bloodline and bloodline alone. So we're going to show you where this is indeed the fact. Ezra chapter 2, verse 59. And these were they which went up from Tel Melah, Tel Harsha, Cherub, Adan, and Immer. But they could not show their father's house and their seed wherewith they were of Israel. So these men, okay, they went up, okay, but what they had to show, you got to show us who's your father, who's your father's house, okay? And since they were unable to prove exactly what their genealogy was, we don't know who your father is. You can't prove to us who your father is of any of these tribes of Israel, okay? So therefore, we can't accept you. All right. So that's how strict that is. Okay. They weren't able to prove their seed, whether they were of the house of Israel. So they could not prove this. All right. Now, Ezra, we're going to deal with second Ezra, same thing. Not second Ezra, Ezra chapter 2, excuse me. We're going to go to verse 62 and show where there were a few men just like this who claimed the priesthood, but when the genealogy and the records were checked and they could not be verified that they were indeed Levites, they were kicked from the priesthood and they were considered polluted, because you cannot be a priest of the Most High unless you are the sons of Aaron. And this has to be proven by genealogy. Without that, you can't go in that priesthood. It's not going to happen. So someone cannot convert and be an Israelite. Someone cannot go to a seminary school and be priest. To be a priest of the Most High, you have to be of the bloodline of Aaron, of the seed of Levi. And there's no way around that. That is a statute forever, a covenant forever. Okay? So we're going to go to Ezra chapter 2, verse 62. All right? These sought their register among those that were reckoned by genealogy. So everyone is reckoned by genealogy, bloodline. Okay? But they were not found. Therefore were they, as polluted, put from the priesthood. So individuals want to come up there and say, "Hey, man, I'm a Levite. I'm of the sons of Aaron. I'm a priest." "Oh, yeah, you are? Really? Well, let's see. Who was your father? This, that. So remember, the records were kind of skewed because we're in captivity. We're in disarray. We're coming back from captivity, the Babylonian captivity. Okay, so number one, we weren't following the law, because if we were, we would not have been plucked up and taken to Babylon in the first place. So we weren't following the law before we got kicked out. So when we got kicked out and we're living in captivity among the Babylonians, we're all kind of foul out there. All right. So records are not being kept. You're not sure who's who, just like we are today. No records is kept. No law is kept. We don't know who's who. We don't know who our Levites are. Okay. So you're having the same thing as when we were in captivity then, to us being in captivity now. Same confusion, same disarray, same lawlessness. Okay. However, once we were taken up, these men tried to claim that they were Levites and that they were the sons of Aaron. This could not be proven. They got the boot. Okay. So if you think because you went to seminary school, you some priest, you might be a priest. Not a priest of this God right here, you're not. Okay. So that's for you to consider. Now we're going to go to Ezra chapter 3, and we will read verse 8. That's the starting of the building of this second temple. Ezra 3, and we will read verse 8. Now in the second year of their coming unto the house of Yah at Jerusalem, in the second month began Zerubbabel, the son of Slathiel, and Yeshua, the son of Jehozadak, and the remnant of their brethren, the priests and the Levites, and all they that were come out of captivity unto Jerusalem, and appointed the Levites from 20 years old and upward to set forward the work of the house of Yah. Once again, the Levites set forward the work of the house of Yah. Why? The Levites are the only ones who can touch any of the holy vessels. That's number one. The Levites know exactly what needs to go where, because they are in charge of everything pertaining to the house of the Most High. Sacrifices, who goes in what gate, comes out the other gate, where things are to be placed, everything concerning the Most High's house is dictated by, controlled by, and instructed by Levites. That's it. Okay, so you cannot build a temple and not have Levites on those grounds. Impossibility. Okay, now let's go, staying in the same chapter, Ezra 3, We're going to read verse 10 through 13. All right. I'm going to read the foundation where the foundation is being laid for this second house. Once again, Ezra chapter 3, verse 10, and we will read verse 10 through verse 13. And when the builders laid the foundation of the temple of Yah, they set the priests in their apparel with trumpets, and the Levites, the sons of Asaph, with cymbals to praise Yah, after the ordinance of David, king of Israel. So once again, once this foundation was laid, Zerubbabel has laid the foundation. They want to get a little dedication to the laying of this foundation. Okay, they set the priest in their apparel. Now let's get this right. The priest to the Most High, you have certain garments you have to wear. None of it says gaiters. None of it says square toes. None of it says three-piece Armani suits. Nowhere in there is there a tie or any of that. The priests are to wear garments that are of linen. Nothing to make them sweat. I know that fella in your house of idol worship. He's got a handkerchief on his head every day just sweating because he's up there telling you lies and you don't know any better. He's got his three-piece suit on and his gaiters. Okay? That you bought. All right? So the priest of the Most High, when you start dealing with the priest, you've got the linens that you have to have on. All right? You've got the meat tree that you have to have on your head. You've got to have the ouches of gold. You have to have the 12 precious stones inscribed with the names of the children of Israel according to their birth. You got to have on the linen ephod. You've got to have on the robe, one bell, one pomegranate, one bell, one pomegranate. That way when you go into the holy place, there makes a sound of those ringing bells. Because you go into the holy place and those bells don't go off, you're liable to be a dead man. So these are the things that the priest had garments. And those garments were only to be worn in the holy place. They couldn't go outside and deal with the people. All right. Now, a priest was not to profane himself. He could not marry outside of the children of Israel. He can't go marry a stranger. It's not going to happen. A priest could not marry a woman that was a divorced woman, unless that woman was a divorced woman that was married to a priest before. You cannot be a priest unless your father was a priest before you, because this is the bloodline of Aaron. Okay? So a priest was not to pollute himself with dead people. Your pastor is probably burying 3 or 4 people a week. All right? You can't do that as the Most High's priest. The only way you're going to deal with any dead person, number one, it better be your sister who is not married, that is a virgin and she ain't married. It's better be your father or your mother, direct. And even after you deal with that situation as a priest, you've got 7 days to where you've got to cleanse yourself before you even go back to your priestly duties. So you're not to pollute yourselves with dead bodies. Your preacher is praying over dead folks 3-4 times a week. With the Most High, that's a no-no. Okay, so get yourself familiar with what the priest does, what his duties are, what his garments are, etc. And then I want you to go into your house of idol worship and take a good look around you. And take a good look at that man that's doing that song and dance in that pulpit. And then I want you to come back and look in this book and see what the Most High's requirements are of his priest. Code of conduct of that priest, duties of his priest, and the attire of his priest. And you ask yourself, is that man that you give 10% of your hard-earned money to, is he a Levite? Is he walking in accordance to the duties of the priest? Is he in priestly attire? Does he conduct himself in the manner in which the Most High commanded his priests to conduct themselves? And the answer is no. So, I'll let you do the reading and you make the decision, because I'm showing you where to look. You determine what you see. Okay, that way you can get out of this nonsense that you're in called idolatry, Christianity, and whatever else. It's all the same. All right. So make sure that when you're dealing with the priest, you understand clearly what's going on. Anyway, they're laying the foundation. Let's continue with that. All right. So the foundation of the temple of Yah had set the priests in their apparel with trumpets, and the Levites, the sons of Asaph, with cymbals to praise Yah after the ordinance of David, king of Israel. All right. Now let's go to verse 11. And they sang together by chorus, in praising and giving thanks unto Yah, because he is good, for his mercy endureth forever towards Israel. His mercy does not endure forever towards everyone. His mercy endureth forever towards the children of Israel. So regardless of how foul you have been, and regardless of how foul you see our people continue to be today, if we would humble ourselves, find out where Jerusalem is from our house, lift our hands in prayer, while we face that house, it's no longer there, but we're to face that house in that city once we've been scattered into all these strange lands. The Most High said he will hear our prayer. So you've tried everything else, and you need to try that. Matter of fact, you need to do it. Forget about trying it. Get it done. And all the people shouted with a great shout when they praised Yah, because the foundation of the house of Yah was laid. So we made a dedication once the foundation was laid. You know our people, we're all about some music and quick to celebrate something. Okay, so we were really celebrating the fact that the foundation of that second temple was laid. Now I want you to keep in mind that when this second temple is built, the first one was destroyed. So there was no such thing as the Most High having two temples up at the same time. All right. If you were away traveling in a far country, or if you were out, you're traveling out, you had to come up and make your dedication in Jerusalem. And the same thing will happen in the latter days when we build that third temple. All these other nations are going to have to send representatives up to that temple. You don't have a temple 5 miles from your house. All right. Because if you look at these Christians, right, they've got 5 or 6 churches within a mile of their house or more. So they've got their favorite church that they go to. All right. But, if they go to their mama's house and their mother live in another state, guess what? She has her church too. All right. And if your mother and your father's divorced and your father live in another state other than your mother, he has his church too. All right. So you can just kind of take your pick out of all these houses of idol worship that you can just pretty much pick from. And this is not the case with the Most High's temple. He has but one. And if you're going to dedicate anything, you got to take it up to him. All right. And if you're going to pray to him, you got to face where that house was built. That's in Solomon's supplication. It's plain English, but you have to read it. And not only read it, you must also do it. All right. Verse 12. But many of the priests and Levites and chief of the fathers, who were ancient men that had seen the first house, when the foundation of this house was laid before their eyes, wept with a loud voice, and many shouted aloud for joy. So, remember, these men are coming back from the Babylonian captivity. So they were around during the time of Solomon. They seen the first house that was laid and that was built. So they are overjoyed that they have lived long enough to see a second house built onto the Most High. All right. Now, there was such crying and such joy that you couldn't discern the crying from the joy. And the that's the pain of a people right there. Okay. That's what a painful thing that was. Okay. Joyful, but also very painful. For we had been in captivity. We have done wickedness, and yet the Most High was merciful unto us, because his mercy endureth forever. He was merciful unto us to put a spirit upon Cyrus that had caused him to release us, so we can go up to build him a house at Jerusalem, because we had walked contrary, and thus he caused us to be plucked up, okay, and shipped out of the land. So the joy was for the second chance that we were given to actually build a house onto the Most High, our strong one, okay, and to dedicate it unto him. All right. So that's a pretty strong, that's a strong thing right there, when we actually were given a second chance, and we actually acknowledged that we have been in error. Okay. Now, uh verse 13, I think I've read that, but let me go ahead and reread it again. Verse 13. So that the people could not discern the noise of the shout of joy from the noise of the weeping of the people. For the people shouted with a loud shout, and the noise was heard afar off. So that pretty much described what I've just said. You couldn't tell the crying from the joy. It was a sad thing, but yet a joyous thing for us, because we were relieved from captivity. We were released by Cyrus in order to go build that temple. And I'm certain those elders knew clearly that we were in error. Okay. So, when you're wrong and you know you were wrong, and it was pointed out to you that you were wrong, if you're of a contrite spirit, a remorseful spirit, it will cause you to shed tears. It will hurt you if you know you have done wrong. And yet, in spite of your wrongdoing, you are given a second chance. Very, very special thing. And certainly a testament to the mercy of the Most High towards his people Israel. Okay, now let's go to Ezra. Ezra, we'll go to chapter 4, and we'll deal with verse 1 through 3. Here you have haters. I know you've got some haters right now in the house of Israel, but there were haters back then too. Okay, so we will see where some haters who purposely try to sabotage the building of this second temple. Then it's funny how people can be duplicitous. They can hate you, and yet, though they're trying to lay stumbling blocks in your way, okay, they hate you, number one. They've blasphemed you and tried to sabotage the building of the temple, but yet they come look at you in the face and say, let us help you. Let's help you build this temple. But these are the same individuals that behind your back are doing everything possible to ensure that you don't build the temple. All right. So let's go ahead and cover some of the foolishness that we had to deal with when we were building this second temple. Zerubbabel and the men that came up from captivity. Ezra chapter 4 will deal with verse 1 through 3. And verse 1 of Ezra chapter 4 reads, Now when the adversaries of Judah and Benjamin heard that the children of the captivity builded the temple unto Yah, the strong one of Israel, verse 2, Then they came to Zerubbabel and to the chief of the fathers, and said unto them, Let us build with you, for we seek your God, as ye do. And we do sacrifices unto him since the days of Ashar-Haddon, king of Assur, which brought us up hither. Verse 3. But Zerubbabel and Jeshua and the rest of the chief of the fathers of Israel said unto them, Ye have nothing to do with us to build an house unto our strong one, but we ourselves together will build unto Yah, the strong one of Israel, as King Cyrus, the king of Persia, hath commanded us. So these haters, they come up and all of a sudden they want to be friendly. Hey, let's help you build this temple because, we serve and seek your God as you do. We have done so since XYZ time. Now let's get this clear. The Most High's temple in building, heathens are not to touch anything pertaining to that. Okay, that's all the work of the house of Israel, not heathen. That's why Cyrus said clearly, which one of you or what men among you want to go up to help build this temple? He didn't charge Persians to do it. Persians are not Israelites. Okay, so this is the work of the house of Israel, none other. So when you try to help us build this temple, you're gonna get no. That's gonna be the answer, because this is our strong one, not yours. And you have nothing to do with us as we build this temple, nor will you have anything to do with us when we build a third temple. Excuse me. So therefore, these men try to offer Zerubbabel to help build the temple, and that they seek our God or our strong one as we do. And so, that offer was swiftly rejected. Okay. Read verse 2 and verse 3. We've already read those. All right, let's go ahead and go now to Ezra 5. Ezra chapter 5 and verse 2. Ezra chapter 5, verse 2. Ezra chapter 5, verse 2 reads, Then rose up Zerubbabel, the son of Lathiel, and Yeshua, the son of Jozadak, and began to build the house of Yah, which is at Jerusalem. And with them were the prophets of Yah, helping them. So Zerubbabel and the elders of Israel and the prophets, those are all who are building this house. Now this house and these gates, everything that was being built, we had to build it with men on guard. Okay, you got your weapon in one hand, and you got your working tool in the other hand, because haters all around don't want to see that house built, because the stronger Israel is, the weaker the other nations. So it is in no interest of the other nations to see us, number one, build the temple of the Most High, and it's not in their interest to see us return unto the Most High. For if we do this, they know that the Most High will strengthen us against them. All right, so it is their duty to have you eat pork. It is their duty to ensure that you don't keep the Sabbath. It is their duty to ensure that you take part in all manner of wickedness, okay, and idolatry, because with you doing so, the Most High will strengthen himself against you. Okay? However, should you start to turn back to the laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts as we were commanded at the first, then the Most High will strengthen us against our enemies. That's one. And two, he will take all the curses that he has put upon us over the centuries, all the mistreatment and the harsh judgments will be placed upon our enemies. And then he will return us back into the land that he promised unto our forefathers. We will be gathered out of these nations, and many of these nations will be utterly destroyed. So the heathen around you have no business in seeing you become the head of the nations. So if they can keep you in idolatry, that's exactly what they will do. Okay, however, you are to return back onto this law. Okay, that's what we're commanded to do. We're not to be following after their gods and after the manner of anything that they do. We were instructed that these people in which we have been scattered in the midst of in these many lands, that their ways are vanity, they are lies, they are worthlessness, and nothing they do is of the Most High, ever, never have been. So we are not to follow them. All right. Let's go to let's jump down, same chapter. We're gonna go to Ezra. We're still in Ezra 5. We're gonna go to verse 16. Ezra chapter 5, verse 16. Ezra chapter 5, verse 16 reads, Then came the same Sheshbazzar, that's Zerubbabel, and laid the foundation of the house of Yah, which is in Jerusalem. And since that time, even unto now, that even unto now hath it been in building, and yet it is not finished. So the foundation is laid. We made a nice little dedication once we did this, but the building was discontinued because all types of haters started sending all types of letters up to the king of Persia telling him, don't let these people build this stuff. They don't pay taxes. They build all kind of trouble. Don't let them build this house. So, the records had to be checked, etc., etc. And it was some time before we could actually resume the building of that house because haters were sabotaging the whole works. Okay? So, yeah, there are haters back then, or were back then as there is today, that will not, does not want the best for the house of Israel at all. All right, let's go to Ezra chapter 6. We will read verse 14 and verse 16 as we dedicate the house of Yah. Verse 14 through 16. Ezra chapter 6. Verse 14 reads, and the elders of the Israelites. It says Jews in this book. If you read this book, you'll know better. Okay? And the elders of the Israelites builded, and they prospered through the prophesying of Haggai the prophet and Zechariah the son of Iddo. And they builded and finished it according to the commandment of Yah of Israel, and according to the commandment of Cyrus and Darius and Artaxerxes king of Persia. So here we're seeing where this house was finished. Okay, so now the house is built. The kings of Persia, okay, the Most High strengthened them to ensure that his people Israel had builded that house. Okay, so, and that was no easy thing because we did that house. We built the house and we built the walls of Jerusalem in troublous times. Okay, there were haters and enemies all amongst us at that time. Verse 15. And this house was finished on the 3rd day of the month Adar, which was in the 6th year of the reign of Darius the king. Verse 16. And the children of Israel, the priests and the Levites, and the rest of the children of the captivity, kept the dedication of this house of Yah with joy. So we dedicated the house, and we kept the dedication of that house with joy. Okay, i.e. sacrifices, music, and things of the like, as we did with the first house. Okay, now let's jump to Ezra chapter 8. So we got Temple 2 out the way. Temple 2 is built. Okay, now we're at Ezra chapter 8, and we will read verse 15. No Levites found. Chapter 8 of Ezra, verse 15. And I gathered them together to the river that runneth to Ahava. And there abode we in tents 3 days. And I viewed the people and the priest, and found there none of the sons of Levi. So, coming back from this captivity, Ezra is looking for the priest. So, as he gathered the people together, there's some people who are claiming to be priests, but among them, there were no sons of Levi. And Ezra knows, because Ezra is a priest, if you're not the sons of Levi, you can't be a priest. It's really simple. Okay? So let me reread that for you. For those of you who calling yourselves pastors, reverend, and whatever else. Pastors now, we got guys in Israel now, they're not bishops. I thought bishops came out of the Catholic Church. And the Catholic Church surely does not follow the law, statute, judgment, and precepts of this God right here. Matter of fact, it's contrary to it. So we've got Israelites now calling themselves bishops. They've been calling themselves pastors, calling themselves reverends, or some of them call themselves now apostles, whatever that is. I haven't seen one. I haven't seen a prophet or a priest call themselves or a Levite ever mentioned that they were an apostle in here. I never seen that out of the mouth of any prophet. So, yeah. We've got confusion in the house of Israel, and that basically comes from the lack of reading this law. Anyway, let's go ahead and reread Ezra 8, chapter 15. And I gathered them together to the river that runneth to Ahava. And there abode we in tents 3 days. And I viewed the people and the priest, and found there none of the sons of Levi. So folks claiming to be, I'm a priest, we're priests. And Ezra's looking like, okay, well, how are you a priest and you're not the sons of Levi? Okay, so therefore he knew there was no Levites among them. So therefore he had to go call and get some Levites. All right, he had to go find some of the elders and call some of the fathers of the tribes so he can get some Levites over there, because there were none. Okay, and as you read out through the book of Ezra going into Nehemiah, you see clearly where, even the Levites weren't doing the things that they were supposed to be doing. Okay, all right, let's go to Nehemiah. Nehemiah chapter 1, we'll read verse 7 through 9. Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 7 through 9. Once again, the book of Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 7 through 9. Verse 7 reads, We have dealt very corruptly against thee, and have not kept the commandments, nor the statutes, nor the judgments, which thou commandest thy servant Moses. Remember, I beseech thee, the word that thou commandest thy servant Moses, saying, If ye transgress, I will scatter you abroad among the nations. But if ye turn unto me, and keep my commandments, and do them, though there were of you cast out unto the utmost part of heaven, yet will I gather them from thence, and will bring them unto the place that I have chosen to set my name there. The place that he has chosen to set his name there is Israel, but specifically it is Jerusalem. So if you read Deuteronomy chapter 30, you will see clearly where the Most High said the same thing that Nehemiah is saying. If we humble ourselves, if we turn back onto his laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts, that he will come and gather us out of these nations where he scattered us. He never said he was sending no Jesus Christ or nothing like that to save you anywhere. All right, he said simply, I'll come get you out of all these lands that I scattered you in, and I will plant you back into the land that I promised unto your forefathers. If you would, number one, acknowledge your faults. That's number one. Two, return back unto my law, you and your children. If you do it, it's not going to work, because I've got a covenant with a bloodline of people. So you can't do it and your son not do it. Because then when you die, then what? Because you live forever through your children. You don't die and live forever. That is a lie. Okay, you live forever through your seed. That's why David will always have a man before the Most High on the throne forever. Will David be there? Yeah, David will be there by means of his bloodline. Physical David is dead and gone, never to come back. Ever. And he's not with the Most High no place. He was gathered onto his fathers, like everyone else that you've ever seen die in this book. You've never read where a man died and went to hell. You've never read that out of the mouth of no prophet. And you've never read where a man died and went to heaven. Show me that, if you can, because it does not exist, and I've been through this book. So this is a figment of your imagination in this New Testament. There's no one that's ever died and went to heaven. You can't find it. And there's no one that's ever died and went to hell. You can't find that either. So let's stop the foolishness and get to reading. Now, so the Most High says clearly that he will come and gather us from the utmost part of heaven, no matter where he has scattered us in these lands. He's going to get us if we would stop transgressing against his laws, us and our children. Our children must turn back also, because he has a covenant with all of us through bloodline. Okay, so this becomes very important. So this is Nehemiah, okay, saying a prayer or offering supplication unto the Most High. All right, and he's doing nothing but reiterating exactly what we've always been told from the days of old, that we are to keep that law, and that no matter what, even when we're scattered and we're in the lowest state, if we would bethink ourselves, turn and face this house, not turn and face these houses, this house which was built in Jerusalem, in the city and the place where the Most High chose to rest his name. if we will lift our hands in prayer and offer supplication from the many lands of our captivity, after the Most High had scattered us, then the Most High said he will hear our prayer, he will heal us, and he will return and gather us and place us into the land of our forefathers. This stuff is laid out for us. Now the question is, will you do it? All right. So this is Nehemiah making his supplication, making his prayer. Now let's go to Haggai. Let's go to Haggai. We're almost finished. Let's go to the book of Haggai. Haggai chapter 2. Haggai chapter 2. We're going to deal with verse 7, verse 2 through 17. Haggai chapter 2. And we'll deal with verse 2 through 17. Haggai chapter 2. So we get back to this temple, we get back to Zerubbabel, because you can find the information you're looking for in more than one place. The Most High can confirm his word through more than just one prophet. Okay, so let's deal with Haggai chapter 2. We will read verse 2 through 17. So Haggai chapter 2 verse 2 reads, "Speak now to Zerubbabel, the son of Slathiel, governor of Judah, and to Joshua, the son of Josedek, the high priest, and to the residue of the people, saying, Who is left among you that saw this house in her first glory?" All right. Who that's left among you that saw this house in its first glory? Remember, we just read where the elders were actually crying, okay, because they saw the first house. All right. So now the question is, who is left among you that saw this house in her first glory? Meaning, who among you here that have seen this house, the first one that was built by Solomon? So here's the question. And how do you see it now? Is it not in your eyes in comparison as nothing? So here's what's being spoken of to Haggai. Haggai speaking to Zerubbabel, the Most High speaking through Haggai to Zerubbabel and to the elders, asking them, who among you, we got this second house up, who among you saw the first house that Solomon built? And let's say however many say, yeah, we were here, we saw the first house. Then the next question was, this house right here, meaning this second house, how is it in comparison to the first house? Is it not as nothing? Meaning that this house you got right here pales in comparison to the first house. The second house is not hitting on a bag of bricks, is what it comes down to. Okay? And there's a reason why the Most High is asking this. Okay, so the second house pales in comparison. It is as nothing compared to the magnificent house that Solomon had built. And so now you got to ask yourself, well, why is that? Well, we're going to cover that. All right. Verse 4 reads, "Yet now be strong, O Zerubbabel, saith Yah, and be strong, O Joshua, son of Josedek," all right, "the high priest, and be strong, all ye people of the land, saith Yah, and work, for I am with you, saith Yah of hosts." So the Most High was strengthening Zerubbabel and those who returned back from the captivity. Continue to build, continue to work. I'm with you. Most High is always with Israel, even in our lowest state. Always. Most High said he will always be in the midst of us. Always. That's why, in spite of impossible odds, and in spite of him beating us over the head to get us to understand and return to his laws, we are still blessed. We still have mirth. We still have laughter. Okay? We still reproduce, because we're never not going to reproduce, because we're the house of Israel. And we will always be here. All right? We are his people. So, in spite of our punishment, He still loves us. Okay? He is still in the midst of us, and he will always have mercy towards the sons of Jacob. And that is just the facts. That's the law. It's right here. Okay, so even though we're in a low state, okay, the Most High is still among us, so we still find joy in the worst of conditions. All right, and if we want to get out of these bad conditions, all we have to do is return to his law. It's really as simple as that. All right, now, verse 5 of Haggai chapter 2. According to the word that I covenanted with you when you came out of Egypt, so my spirit remaineth among you. Fear ye not. So his spirit is always in the midst of the house of Israel. Okay. Verse 6. For thus saith Yah of hosts, yet once, it is a little while, and I will shake the heavens and the earth, and the sea, and the dry land. And I will shake all nations, and the desire of all nations shall come. And I will fill this house with glory, saith Yah of hosts. The silver is mine, the gold is mine, saith Yah of hosts. The glory of this latter house shall be greater than that of the former, saith Yah of hosts. And in this place will I give peace, saith Yah of hosts. So let's look at that. Let's look at that verse. Verse 9 of Haggai chapter 2. So the Most High is saying, he's speaking to Israel through Haggai. He's saying the glory of this latter house shall be greater than that of the former. So we already discussed when we read Haggai chapter 2, verse 3. It is made plain that this second house that Zerubbabel built pales in comparison. It is as nothing compared to the first house. So the second house is not hitting on a bag of bricks. But the Most High is saying here in verse 9, the glory of this latter house, not this second house. Because the second house is clearly, the Most High said the second house is not greater than the first house. The second house pales in comparison. The one that Zerubbabel built pales in comparison. It is as nothing compared to the one that Solomon built. So the Most High is saying this latter house shall be greater than that of the former, saith Yah of hosts. And in this place will I give peace, saith Yah of hosts. Now, so the former would be the second house and the first house. So what he's saying here in a nutshell, the third temple will be greater than the previous two. The one built by Solomon and the one built by Zerubbabel. And that he will give peace in that place. So now we're going to discuss this third temple in a minute. All right. Now let's go to, we're reading all the way to verse 17. So let's go to verse 10. All right. Verse 10 reads, in the 24th day of the 9th month, in the 2nd year of Darius, came the word of Yah by Haggai the prophet, saying, thus saith Yah of hosts, ask now the priest concerning the law, saying, if one bear holy flesh in the skirt of his garment, and with his skirt do touch bread, or pottage, or wine, or oil, or any meat, shall it be holy? And the priest answered and said, no. Verse 13. Then Haggai said, if one that is unclean by a dead body, remember I told you that a priest becomes unclean by a dead body. It's not to be dealing with dead people. Okay, and if he ever does, it better be his sister who has never been married, who is a virgin, never been married, or his mother and his father. One of those three. And when he does so, he's unclean for a week. Okay, and he has to offer a offering, a sin offering, once he gets back to the temple, etc. Okay, so priest got all kind of special duties, and you need to read them. So let's go ahead and get back to verse 13 of Haggai chapter 2. Then said Haggai, if one that is unclean by a dead body touch any of these, shall it be clean? And the priest answered and said, it shall be unclean. Verse 14. Then Haggai answered and said, so is this people, and so is this nation before me. All right, so this is the Most High speaking through Haggai. So the Most High is saying, If the priest touch such and such and such, he's unclean. If the priest does this and that, he's unclean. He said, well, so is the house of Israel before me. The whole house of Israel is unclean. All of you are unclean, is what the Most High is saying in a nutshell. So is this people, and so is this nation before me, saith Yah, and so is every work of their hands, and that which they offer there is unclean. So let's put that in a nutshell. This second house, the second house, all of Israel is unclean before the Most High at this point. All the work of their hands, and the temple is a work of their hands. That is unclean. So all that they do before the Most High is unclean. And what they offer on the altars before the Most High is unclean. So you understand that. All right. Verse 15. And now I pray you, consider from this day and upward, from before a stone was laid upon a stone in the temple of Yah. So consider, before you even started to build this house, you were all unclean before me. Your hands were unclean when you built this house. So this house is unclean, and so are you in my sight. So you understand that. Verse 16. Since those days were when one came to a heap of 20 measures, there were but 10. When one came to the press fat for to draw 50 vessels out of the press, there were but 20. Verse 17. I smote you with blasting and with mildew and with hail in all the labors of your hands. Yet ye turn not to me, saith Yah. So the Most High said, I hit you with mildew, with blastings, and whatever else, all the different pestilence and judgment that he placed upon us. Yet we will not consider it. He said, our hands and the work of our hands have been unclean. Long before we laid, that's why when you were building this temple, there was all kind of beef going on. We had to build it, work weapon and work tool in one hand, weapon in the other hand. If the Most High really approved of that thing, we'd have been at peace building it, like Solomon was at peace when he built his temple. But this temple was built in troublous times. Okay? And it was interrupted several times. All right? Because the house of Israel before the Most High, we were unclean. And the works of our hands were unclean. And the sacrifices that we offered up to the Most High in this temple was also unclean. So he's letting us know, long before you laid the first stone upon a stone on this foundation to build this temple, you, the work of your hands, and everything else before me is unclean. So what he's saying here is that I'm pretty much not accepting this temple. You don't see nowhere here where during this dedication the Most High made his presence known at that temple. The first one was Solomon. You see clearly where the Most High came down and burnt up what was offered on the altar. So you know that dedication and that temple was accepted. Most High said he chose to lay his name there in that house. He never said anything about that second one. He never showed up at that second one with smoke or anything at all during the dedication when that foundation was laid. So it's a totally different dynamic going on with that second temple. All right. It's all unclean. All right. So you kind of make sure you understand that. All right. So they were unclean and unclean, and that second temple was destroyed. Now let's jump to let's go back, and then we've got two more places to go. Okay, we're gonna go actually before we go back, let's go to Haggai. Let's go to Zechariah. Let's go to Zechariah chapter 4. Zechariah chapter 4, and we will deal with verse 9. We'll deal with Zerubbabel laid the foundation, and that Zerubbabel did indeed finish that temple. Okay? Zechariah verse 4, and we will read verse 9 only. Zechariah chapter 4. Zechariah chapter 4, and we'll read verse 9. The hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this house. His hands shall also finish it. And thou shalt know that YHWH hath sent me unto you. So this is Zechariah speaking, letting the house of Israel know Zerubbabel laid the foundation of this temple, and his hands are going to finish it. So Zerubbabel was going to see the building of that temple through and through. And Zerubbabel was an old man at the time. Okay, so that temple was to be laid and finished by the hands of Zerubbabel. Okay, so we know good and well who built that second temple. First one Solomon, second one Zerubbabel. All right, we're going to finish up. We're going to jump back to 2 Chronicles chapter 20. We're going to read a few verses in there, and then we'll wrap it up. This is going to be the longest lesson by far, but I'm talking a lot through it to kind of help you understand. Okay, so let's go to 2 Chronicles. 2 Chronicles, and we're going to deal with chapter 20. 2 Chronicles chapter 20. And let's deal with verse 9. 2 Chronicles chapter 20, and we'll read verse 9, where Jehoshaphat says a prayer in the house of Yah. 2 Chronicles chapter 20, verse 9. And it reads, this is Jehoshaphat speaking, okay, saying a prayer. If when evil cometh upon us, as the sword, judgment, or pestilence, or famine, we stand before this house and in thy presence, for thy name is in this house, not houses throughout the earth, and cry unto thee in our affliction, then thou wilt hear and help. So, all the kings of Judah clearly understood that the Most High had one house, and that when we prayed, we were to face that house, and we will make our supplication at that house. There weren't a house in Jerusalem, a house in Gibeah, and a house in the city of Simeon, or in the country of Simeon, and a house in Benjamin, and a house down in Gad where they stay, and a house down in that was not the case. It was one house, and everyone came up to that house. Okay, so that's Jehoshaphat speaking right there, praying that when we would come to the Most High's house, because the Most High had his name in that house, and when we cried unto him, regardless of our affliction, that the Most High would hear, that he would help, and that he would heal us. All right, now let's stay in the same chapter, okay? And we're going to go to verse 15. We will read verse 15, 17, and 20, and then we'll wrap it up. 2 Chronicles chapter 20, verse 15. Let's read that. Verse 15 reads, And he said, Hearken ye, all Judah, and ye inhabitants of Jerusalem, and thou King Jehoshaphat, thus saith Yah unto you, Be not afraid nor dismayed by reason of this great multitude, for the battle is not yours, but Yah's. Okay, so the house of Israel, Jehoshaphat is in trouble this time. Okay, you had the children of Moab and Ammon that's coming against him. Okay, we're outnumbered. All right, but it was told clearly to Jehoshaphat, don't be afraid. It's not your battle. That the Most High was going to fight the battle for Israel. And we have to remember that in spite of our plight, and though it may appear as if we are outnumbered by our enemies, the battle is the Most High's. But it's not the Most High's if we're going to call on others to fight on our behalf. We must first seek the Most High. We must not seek the help of men or the help of man or the help of our enemies. We must first turn and seek the Most High, and it is his battle. He will fight our battles for us. So this is not to be forgotten. Let's go to verse 17. Ye shall not need to fight in this battle. Set yourselves, stand ye still, and set the salvation of Yah with you, O Judah and Jerusalem. Fear not, nor be dismayed. Tomorrow go out against them, for Yah will be with you. Now, verse 20. And they rose up early in the morning and went forth into the wilderness of Tekoa. And as they went forth, Jehoshaphat stood and said, Hear me, O Judah, and ye inhabitants of Jerusalem. Believe in Yah your strong one, so shall ye be established. Believe his prophets, so shall ye prosper. Now, we will finish that lesson there. Now, some things to remember is that, number one, you're not to place your trust in idols, and you are to place your trust when dealing with adversity first in the Most High. If we're scattered in the midst of these nations, the first thing we're to do is we all have smartphones nowadays. You're to first try to download a compass, something that lets you know exactly where Jerusalem is from your house. And you must get on your knees, lift your hands in prayer, and you make your supplication there, okay, towards that house. The Most High does not have 1,000 houses in any specific country or city. Okay, you know, in your city, there's probably 1,000 houses there in this one city. Okay, if you deal with a state in the United States, the average state probably got houses by the thousands. Okay, throughout the earth, there are many houses of worship by the millions. The strong one of this book had and placed his name in one city and placed his name in one house. He never placed his name in that second house. It never happened. Okay, when the dedication was made in that second house, he wasn't there. Okay, he did not show up there. He did not, send down fire onto the altar to accept the offerings or anything of the like, because everything that was presented before him in the work of Israel's hands at that second temple, it was unclean. Therefore, it is not accepted. It is rejected. All right, so I want you to keep these things in mind. So let's keep in mind a few things. Number one, first house built by Zerubbabel, destroyed by the Babylonians. Okay, then you have the Persians, okay, Cyrus, who released us after they had defeated the Babylonians and pretty much took over. We're actually in their clutches till the Most High moved Cyrus to release some of us, and spearheaded by Zerubbabel, we went back to Jerusalem. We were allowed to go back, and we were allowed to build our second temple, excuse me. Now, with that second temple, though we were in building of it, our hands were unclean. We were unclean before the first stone was laid. That place was unclean. All right, so that is something to keep in mind, that we had trouble building that second temple. All right, now, so the dedication to that second temple was nothing like it was the first temple. And that's why the Most High said clearly that second temple that Zerubbabel built, it is as nothing compared to the one Solomon built. Because number one, Most High wasn't with us in the same manner. We weren't walking after him with our heart and soul in the same manner. We were unclean. So there's no way that second house could have been anything close to the first house. But the Most High said that the latter house will be greater than the former, meaning the third temple will be greater than the previous two. Now, I'll finish up with this. If the third temple is going to be greater than the previous two, we know a few things. Number one, the first two temples were built at Jerusalem, same spot, same city. It's the only place where the Most High chose to rest his name. All right. We know that the third temple has not been built because the Most High said he will give peace in that place. Okay. There's no peace in Jerusalem right now. Third temple isn't there. Now, there's some people there that call themselves Israelis. I've combed through this book. There are no Israelis in here. Okay. The people that's in that land do not match these curses that were placed upon the Most High's people in Deuteronomy the 28th chapter. They don't match it. Things to consider. Okay? Jerusalem won't be a town without walls. There's a whole bunch of walls, and they continue to build walls there. Something to consider. Now, from the time that these people have been in the land, okay, 1947, they've been there in the land for quite some time. It's at least 70 years they've been there. Okay, they have built what's known as settlements. All right, they have not built the third temple, and they cannot build the third temple, for they are not the bloodline, nor are they the house of Israel at all. These people go to this land and change their names to sound more quote unquote Hebraic, if you will. All right, the Most High clearly said in the book of Isaiah that, you know, the enemies of the Most High, the enemies of Israel, is going to place their name upon his chosen, which means the house of Israel are wearing names of other people. So if you look at the diaspora or diaspora, whichever way you choose to pronounce it, of our people, we wear names of the English, the French, and the Dutch. Italians too, okay, and the Germans, okay, and the Spaniards. All right, and these are those nations who were running the slave trade. So the children of Israel are wearing names of their captives. We're still wearing them to this day. It's one of the many signs that will be upon the house of Israel. So when you hear these people speaking of the fact that they're in this land, number one, the Most High said he would have peace in the land. There's no peace there. Those Israelis have to have their head on a swivel every day for fear of someone blowing them up, etc. All right? They have gay parades there and all manner of things that are contrary to the Most High and his law. Most High never spoke of a Talmud in here. I've never seen it. Okay? I've never read about Judaism in here. So the Most High never gave the house of Israel Judaism. The Most High scattered his people. He removed their names and their heritage. No one was to know that they were the house of Israel. He caused the memory of the house of Israel to cease from among men. And that's why our people walk around in the many nations not knowing exactly who they are or where they're from. But yet this man that's an Israeli has been screaming that he's the people of God for as long as anyone can remember. This is not the prophecy. The prophecy was that Israel would not know who they were, and that their names and their heritage would be removed, and they would be scattered throughout the nations. I don't know of any Israeli that has been scattered anywhere. He went there by immigration. He was not scattered. He cannot show a history at all of his people being enslaved to anyone. They cannot show at all where their names have been changed by anyone. All right. Now, these things were to be a common denominator. That way, when the Most High began to wake up the house of Israel, we would be able to look into this book and bear witness to what this book says, and bear witness to what we see in our current lives and what has happened to our forefathers before us in generations past. And they cannot look anywhere in their generations past right now today and see where their names were changed by anyone. They cannot look and see where they were enslaved and in servitude to anyone. And so there is a problem with that, okay, pertaining to them trying to be the people of the land. Moreover, they've been there for 70 years. And they have had all manner of trouble in that land because they're not the people of this book. Now, if they were, that third temple would have been built, because the minute that third temple is built, the Most High would have gathered all his people already and put them in the land. That third temple would be built, the sacrifices would be put on, and the fountain for uncleanness, meaning all of Jerusalem, would go to this fountain of uncleanness and be cleansed. So when this third temple is built, that fountain for uncleanness will be in Jerusalem. And we're going to have our sins cleaned when we hit this fountain. So clearly, no person named JC ever died for you. So with all the trouble that the Israelis are having, if they were indeed the people of the book, that third temple would have been built by now. It's been 70 years. They cannot build this temple. There are no Levites among them. They're not the people of this book. That temple cannot go up unless Levi are on those grounds. Levi has to be present, because you can't build that house without Levites there. Levites are the direct ministers of the Most High. You can't build that house unless the house of Israel is in that land. And for the house of Israel to be in that land, the only way that's going to happen is when the house of Israel return back to these laws that they were given. And only then will we be gathered and placed back in the land of our forefathers. And once that happens, the Most High said he will then take all the curses that was placed upon the house of Israel and place it upon our enemies. So we are still scattered. We're still speaking the languages and dealing with the customs of those who have enslaved us. And since we are walking contrary in that manner, i.e. serving the gods of our enemies and conducting ourselves in the ways of our enemies, we are still stranded and scattered in these lands and being afflicted day in, day out. So once we return back onto this law, then the Most High said he will come and gather us. Never said he was sending anyone named JC. And he will plant us back into the land promised unto our forefathers. And that third temple will be built. And he will dwell in the midst of his people in that third temple as he did in the days of old. So these are things to consider when we see and hear other people calling themselves the house of Israel. That number one, they do not fit the curses of the house of Israel. And that's why the Most High said that will be a sign and a wonder, meaning a sign points to something. So if you're saying you're the house of Israel, we need to look at the signs that the Most High placed upon the house of Israel, and they simply don't fit them. Okay? They have all manners of weaponry in which to defend themselves. The house of Israel does not. The true house of Israel does not, because we're scattered. We're in captivity. We are not in a position of power. And that's going to be the most beautiful thing about the Most High and his testimonies, because we are going to be redeemed without money. And we're going to redeem without bullets. Okay? So our power is with the strong one. Hence our name, Israel. We are to return to this law. That is where our power lies. Okay, so right now in Israel, many are getting guns. Okay, trying to defend themselves and things like that. Let's turn to the Most High. Let's make him our first choice. Okay, and he will do the rest. Look at all the kings of Judah. Okay, look at all those who sought help, wanted to turn to the Assyrian king, or wanted to turn to the king of Syria, or wanted to turn to anyone else first. The Most High punished them for it. We are to turn to the Most High first. And there we will have salvation. There we will have rest. There we will have mercy. So consider these things when we are discussing all of this pertaining to the Most High and his house. The church you go to is not the house of the Most High. There are no Levites in there. You don't have two altars in there. The Most High's house has specific measurements. That's not what your church has. The Most High has a specific dress code for his people. He has a specific dress code for his priests and specific duties, and you do not have that there. So let's go ahead and consider what we're doing and clean up our act. Now, this has been a long lesson, and this I know. A few things to consider. Once again, look at the Most High's laws and his feast days. Okay, look at the rules and regulations for his priest. And look at the Most High's temple. He's only had two. So if he's had two, therefore you know good and well, if you're going to something, you're calling it the house of God, you know you're incorrect. And we were not to build any eminent high places. We were not to build churches, synagogues, or anything of the sort, because the Most High only has one house. We were never instructed to build houses in the place we live to dedicate unto the Most High. We never were. If you can find that, please show it to me, because I have never seen it. Anyway, it's been a long lesson, and I hope it's been informative. That way you can correct yourself if you are in error attending these churches, worshiping some God or the son of some God that the Most High has never given us. The Most High has had two houses built in the same place, City of David. Okay, Mount Moriah. First one built by Solomon, second one by Zerubbabel. There has been no houses unto the Most High after that, until that third temple is built. And it cannot be built until you clean up your act. So let's get together, return back onto these laws, so the many nations where we're in, let's lift our hands in prayer and call upon the Most High to hear our prayer, that we may be returned back onto the land that was promised to our forefathers, and that third temple will be built. It cannot be built unless Levites are on the premises. It cannot be built until the house of Israel has been returned back to their land. So there's those Israelis, as long as they're in that land, no temple will be built, for they are not the house of Israel. Now we'll finish with this as usual. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Peace, Israel.